review of Hilchot Pesach, the most important halachot. There are quite a few halachot. We can't cover everything tonight. That is why some start learning Hilchot Pesach 1 month before. It takes time to cover everything there is to cover. But we will review the most important points, beginning with the Bedikat Hametz, which will occur next week, Tuesday night, on the 13th, or the night of the 14th, Leil Arba'a Asar. That is a mitzvah. That is something that needs to be done, even though it is expected that by then the house is completely clean. So the house should be clean thoroughly. In any room that you suspect that there may have been chametz, whether a child was running around there, playing there, even though it's not used too often, if you suspect that there may have been chametz there, it has to be cleaned, and eventually on that night it has to be checked as well. The difference between the cleaning and the bedikah is that the bedikah will cover every sedek, every crack, every little corner, which one does not do when he cleans. So even though you're cleaning thoroughly, you're not checking every single crack. The bedikah is intended to check anything that was missed by the nikayon, right? And besides that, at the end of the bedikah, there's something called bitul, which is very important. Chametz is something very serious, and it's asur b'mashu. Mashu meaning that even a little bit is prohibited, and even though a whole year round, with the majority of isurim, we have something called bitul b'shishim, something can be annulled or cancelled or diluted in a quantity of 60 times. Chametz is not batel b'shishim on Pesach. Before Pesach, it can be batel b'shishim, but not during Pesach. Because it's hamur, it's a strict isur. There is an isur of karet, on eating chametz. There is an isur of hana'af chametz. There is an isur of bali ra'eh, bali matzeh, not having chametz in our possession, which is a very unique isur. The only one that comes close to that is avodah zarah, which you cannot bring it into your home. So we cannot have it in our possession. So because of that, the Chachamim gave us additional guidelines to how to deal with the chametz, how to look for it, make sure that we did a bitul, which means that any chametz that we're unaware of, that we may not have seen or know about, should be batel ki'afra de'ana, like the dust of the ground. In other words, anachnu mafkirim, we're giving it away. We don't want to be over on the isur of bali ra'eh, bali matzeh, that it's in our possession. So that which we're unaware of, we make the bitul. That bitul happens right after the bedikah, that night, and one more time it's repeated right after the bi'ur, the actual burning of the chametz, the following day. The berachah that is said the night before already includes the burning. That is why it's called al bi'ur chametz, on the burning of the chametz, which will occur the following day. So the process begins the night before, and it ends the following day. Therefore, as soon as the time arrives for cleaning and for checking the house, one cannot sit down and have a meal. One cannot even sit down and have a shiur Torah. At that time, we're concerned that we might forget about the bedikah, which is important. It has to be done. You have to check just in case you did leave something behind, and especially because you may leave some chametz until the following morning and you're going to have breakfast. So bedikah is very important that night, and the time to begin to do it is after Tzet HaKochavim, and it's done le'or haner. It is done with a candle. You can use a flashlight too, but a candle has light that scatters all over, whereas a flashlight, it focuses on one particular corner. You can use both, just don't use a torch, because the mitzvah is to burn the chametz, not to burn your house down. So you don't want to use the ner havdalah. You have to be very careful when you're going with the candle. You're checking underneath your bed, behind doors, in closets, everywhere, right? You're checking almost everywhere. You want to make sure that you're careful with that candle. Even though the bedikah is in the home, where one lives, the cleaning should also take place in one's office, one's workplace. You take food with you, you take a sandwich, you take your lunch. So the day or so before you leave for the Chag HaPesach, you want to make sure you clean your desk, you clean your cubicle, you clean your drawers, make sure that there's no chametz there, regardless of whether you're going to be there on Chol HaMoed. We don't do major work on Chol HaMoed, which is another issue, but if you need to be there for whatever reason, you don't want to have chametz next to you, and you don't want to have chametz in your possession, even though that place is rented, it's not yours, that office is yours in a sense. It somewhat belongs to you because you're occupying it. So you want to clean that, and you want to clean your car. So cars traditionally tend to have chametz, whether it's the car seat for the child, whether it's the back, where we store our shopping. Cars should be vacuumed well and cleaned before Pesach, not during Pesach, before Pesach. It reminds me, some people, of course, light candles for buy them on Shabbat? What good is it? Right? So the cleaning has to be done before Pesach, not already once Pesach has arrived. Yeah. Garage, if all it is for storage, it's usually not a pantry. If you store food, you don't have to be concerned about it. But if you have a study or an office outside, then you would need to do a thorough cleaning. Yeah. Bedikah can sometimes be a long process. If you have a large home, if you have more than one home, if you cannot do it yourself, you can appoint a shaliach. If the shaliach is going to do most of the work, then he should make the blessing. If you start and have your children or others continue to check for you, then you can make the blessing and they can continue to do the bedikah. One needs to be careful, by the way, not to talk during the time that he makes the bedikah, especially between the blessing and the beginning of the bedikah, unless it's something that has to do with the bedikah. I need matches, for example, or something of the like. It should not be interrupted with. Some have the custom of putting out 10 pieces of bread around the house for a variety of reasons. One reason is because we make a beracha, we want to find some chametz. That is one of the there's other reasons why we put that out. According to the Kabbalah, that is the chametz that you recover, that you will be burning with whatever leftovers you have the following morning. You want to have some leftovers to burn. There's even an opinion that says if you have no chametz whatsoever, go ahead and buy something so you can burn. But when it comes to burning, you don't want to burn too much. If you have a lot of leftover food, by next week, by Tuesday, give it to the maid. If it's unopened, give it back to the store if they take it. You don't need it. You bought the wrong one, you don't need it now. For whatever reason, they take it back. Don't sell it. And I'll tell you why. It's best to avoid selling chametz. Selling of chametz, which is another item that we're going to talk about, is intended really for those that have a lot, for those that have a tremendous amount of merchandise, business. And, owners of shops that sell chametz, it's impossible for them to sell all of it before Pesach. So the mechira is intended for them. Now, you could use it too. It works fine for everybody. There are individuals in town that have a goy, and that they have the contract that is used specifically for that purpose, that is sold to the goy before Pesach, and right after Pesach the goy sells it back to us. This is fine. This is a good agreement. It's valid. But you don't want to do it with chametz gamur, real chametz, like a loaf of bread. You don't want to keep it in your possession. Also, because of all sorts of reasons. One is that things may go wrong. What if the rabbi forgot? Well, what happens if the rabbi forgets, or if you forget, then it's called chametz shavar ala pesach, asur behana. Any chametz which Pesach went over it, that it was not sold, that had no bitul, then you cannot benefit from. That is why, after Pesach, the day after, when you go do your shopping, you want to buy cereal, bread, and the like. If you're going to go to a Jewish bakery, to a Jewish grocery store, any Jewish store that sells chametz, you want to make sure that the owner sold his chametz to a competent rabbi. You want to ask him, was your chametz sold to who? And if you don't trust him, you want to find out. Because if he did not, you would have to wait 2, 3, 4 weeks until he gets his new shipment. That shipment that he has, you cannot benefit from. It's called chametz shavar ala pesach. It's a knas, it's a penalty midrabanan. And not only was that individual committed transgression, we cannot benefit from that either. Yes.
Someone's family would go away. Okay, so why do they have to clean the house or do they have to?
Okay, that's a good question. Somebody goes away from it for Pesach. It all depends if he's coming back or not, and it all depends if it's before 30 days before the holiday or within. If it's within the 30 days of the holiday, then he's required. He's already within the limits of Pesach, and he's required to clean his house or to appoint somebody on that day to make the bedikah. Before the 30 days is not required. Right. I'm sorry, did I say with the beracha? No, he would do so without the beracha. The only time you make with the beracha is you forgot to make the bedikah at night. Let's say you came home, you forgot, you fell asleep. You can make the bedikah the following morning. The following morning, you would make a beracha as well. Even though it's not night, even though it's not the correct time, you still have to do it. Let's say you forgot to do it in the morning, you still have to do it during Pesach. Any chametz that you find in Pesach has to be burned on Chol HaMoed. Any chametz that you find after Pesach also has to be burned. So if you did not do a bedikah throughout the whole Pesach, you do the bedikah after Pesach, just to check your home to see if there was any chametz left over. So no, you could always leave. No, you need to clean. You need to check. You need to do a bedikah. You still have to do a bedikah. Yeah. Yeah, because they sell the whole house. Yeah. You still should do a bedikah. All it means is that you sell, anything that you're unaware of, but you still are required to check your house for chametz that you're unaware of, just in case you may come back. It's on Chol HaMoed. You don't want to have a cookie somewhere lying around where a child can come and eat it. Well, you don't know. Yeah, right. It's okay, but still, that is the custom. In other words, once it's within 30 days, there's an obligation for an individual to check his home for chametz. So, of course, people who sell the whole house, it's like a way out of it. Yeah, but it's not something that we rely on. Most people do not do that. We sell our chametz. By selling chametz, we designate an area, usually, like the pantry, or even a place in the freezer or a refrigerator if it's food that needs to be maintained in a cool place. We can designate a place by taping it up, as long as there's no access to it. If it's a door, if it's within a room, we can put a lock and lock it up. If it's a drawer, we can put some tape and seal it and make it distinct. The people should recognize, the kids at home, that this is not somewhere you don't touch. It's a string, whatever it is, to tie it up, to tie it down, that it's not open on Pesach. Yeah. No, you don't have to think of that. You don't even have to sell that. No. So anyway, the cleaning is important, and it applies even for those who are going away. Those who sell, in a way they don't have to, but the minhag, the custom to clean, still applies to everybody. Everybody should check their home. I didn't understand. What's the example? Where does he live the whole year? Right. No, if it's before the 30 days before Pesach, he doesn't have to worry about it. No. You have to still sell or do bitul. As soon as the day of Pesach comes, the day before Pesach, you still have to sell or make bitul of any chametz that you're unaware of. The only thing you don't have to do is bedikah, to check your house. But if you have chametz, right, you have to make the bitul you have to do the mechira, you have to sell the chametz that you know of, or do the bitul for that chametz which you're unaware of. That is regardless of where you are and how much expense you left your home. No, you wherever you are, you do it. Sure. The only thing is that if you are here and you have chametz in Israel, it would be preferably that you do it before Pesach arrives in Israel. There's a 10-hour difference. You don't want to have chametz there when it's already Pesach there. But if you're there, then you would do it there before it becomes Pesach over here. Okay, so besides the car and the workplace and the home, you also have to remember the vacuum cleaner, the bag. The vacuum cleaner has been used a lot to clean up your house. You don't want to forget to leave the vacuum cleaner bag inside the machine. So you want to remove that and dispose of it. As far as disposing of the pach hashpa, of the garbage, some require that we put it in its own plastic bag, not in the trash bins themselves, because the trash bins supposedly belong to us. In reality, at least in Los Angeles, the trash bins don't belong to us. They belong to the city of Los Angeles. And especially if you put them outside on the street, on that side on the sidewalk part, then there's no problem. But some say it's better to put them in a big bag. Depending, of course, when the garbage collector, when they come to pick up the trash. Some go even somewhere else to throw their trash. As long as you leave it outside and anybody can come and take it, it's called hefker. It's perfectly fine. Okay, I think most of you know that on Wednesday, B'ezrat Hashem, in the morning, one can only eat chametz until approximately 9:30, 9:31, 9:32. Until then, you can eat chametz, but there's something called hana'ah. You can benefit from chametz during the 5th hour. In other words, the following hour, between 9:30 and 10:45 approximately. You can still benefit. What does it mean to benefit? You can feed your animals, you could sell it, and you can make bitul in case you forgot to. So in case you haven't sold your chametz for whatever reason, you still have that 1 hour or so that you can sell your chametz. Once that hour has passed, you can no longer have hana'ah, or benefit from the chametz, which also means you cannot sell it. It's not yours. You cannot make bitul on it. Towards the end of the 5th hour, or sometime close to 10:45, one should burn his chametz at the latest. If you're going to work that day, burn your chametz in the morning. You may not have time to come back later. And by the way, there's no beracha, no blessing for anybody that works Erev Pesach achar chatzot, after midday, after about 1 o'clock. So the most you want to work is till 12:30, 1 o'clock. Because then we need time to prepare for Pesach, and it's not right to do any major work at that time. That includes haircuts too. Try to get everything done before that time. So it's about 10:45 by which you have to have burnt your chametz, have sold it, and made in bitul. Because the chametz has to be completely destroyed, much like ashes, you want to take a few minutes extra. In other words, start maybe at 10:20, 10:25 at the latest. So by the time 10:40, 10:45 comes, it is completely black, like charcoal. There's nothing left of it. So it's not edible even for an animal to eat. But don't wait till the last minute to burn. Start a little bit before. Yeah. I don't understand what the issue is. After they throw out the garbage, yeah. You can put it into your property, yeah. What? It's Yom Tov. Yom Tov you're allowed to carry. Right? No, you need a garbage can inside. You need to put the garbage there. Right? It's not a problem. You can put it inside. Or you can leave it outside if it's just as convenient for you. You might as well go to the front door and take it out, or go to the backyard. However it is. Some people don't want to put it in the backyard because it may have some crumbs left inside the bin. So they wash it out with a hose before Pesach, and they put all the chametz in plastic bags, so that there should be no chametz inside. That's a good thing to do, definitely, to wash out the bins. And if you did so, there's nothing for you to be concerned of as far as putting it back in your backyard. If you need it there, you're allowed to put it back there. All right. So mechirat chametz, selling of the chametz, if you have an amount that you couldn't get rid of, it's a large amount, there will be pasim or forms to fill out that you can designate which room and what amount of chametz you're selling, which can include anything that has a tarovet chametz, mixtures of chametz like whiskeys and liquors. All of that you need to include, unless you want to drink it all before Pesach. So the only thing you don't have to be concerned about is anything which is not ra'ul achilat keleb, like shoe polish or Play-Doh, something which is not edible, totally unedible. But of course you don't use it on Pesach, you put it aside, and if you want you can sell it too. However, but you don't need to worry about it. It's not ra'ul achilat keleb, it's not edible, even to a dog, then it's not chametz. Other items that may be somewhat edible, that have some alcoholic content, and that alcohol is made from grain, then it's chametz. Then you have to sell. So if you have those kind of medications, you want to put them aside and sell it as well. You don't have to sell your whole medicine cabinet. You can take out that which you suspect that may have chametz and put it together with the food items that you're selling. You have to go through the house and check it out and see what needs to be sold and what does not need to be sold. The next item is hagalat kelim. Yes. 10:45, approximately. Yeah, approximately. You want to do it the night before. You don't want to wait till the next day. You're basically selling it as of Wednesday, right? As of Erev Pesach, but you want to take care of the contract, fill out the paperwork a day or two before. You don't want to wait till the last minute. Yeah. All right. You don't want to wait till the last moment. No. Hagalat kelim. Today we can Baruch Hashem afford to buy a new set of dishes and silverware, glasses for Pesach. There's no reason to recycle or reuse or to use a whole year for Pesach as well, unless it's a big pot, unless it's something very unique. There's nothing like it out there, and you need to use it for Pesach. Then you can make hagalah. There's various types of hagalah depending on what the vessel is made from. If it's from metal, if it's from plastic, if it's from wood. There's various methods of hagalah or libun. So if you're going to be reusing metal, for example, pots that you use over the flame, over a burner with water, or even frying pans which contain a certain amount of oil, that would also qualify for hagalah. The basic process of hagalah involves setting up a big pot of boiling hot water. That pot can be dairy or meat, makes no difference, and it could be from chametz too. As long as it was not used for the past 24 hours. If somehow it was used, you can add some Ajax inside to make any flavor that is left over pagum. But one of the conditions for that pot is that it should not have been used for the past 24 hours. The second condition is that, of course, that you can fit smaller pots inside into the boiling hot water. You would immerse it for a few seconds, take it out, and then rinse it in cold water. That is how you do hagalah. If you need to do hagalah to the big pot itself, and you don't have a bigger pot to put it in, then you can also boil it and perhaps put a hot stone inside, which will allow the water to overflow, to reach the rim and to overflow. There are places in town that do it. So if you have any pots or pans or things that need to be done, we need to go through Agalah, go ahead and prepare them before Pesach. You cannot do them on Pesach. Not everybody would agree that you could do it on Pesach. If you had to, there is still a way that you can do it. But it's best to take care of it before, or to buy yourself a new set of dishes. No, mikveh, which is the next item, is those that buy new pots and pans or dishes, depending on what it's been made from, if it was manufactured or distributed by a non-Jew, it requires tevilah in the mikveh. So anything that's made from glass or metal that has direct contact with food, right? Directly, in other words, you cook on it, you eat on it, right? That would require tevilah in the mikveh. There are mikvahot just for cleaning for vessels in town. No, not the point. It's a new vessel. We're talking about a new vessel. Alright. It's something that's being used the whole year. You don't have to do tevilah. You've already done tevilah when you bought it the first time. If you haven't, then you should take it to the mikveh, of course. If you haven't done it. For glass and metal, you take it to the mikveh. If it's porcelain, it's earthenware, china, these things do not require mikveh. Unless it's a very, very heavy glazed china, some say it requires tevilah without beracha, without a blessing. Alright, as far as the agalah on glass, if you're Ashkenaz, we don't do agalah on glass. If you have to use it, and that glass was not used for hot food, it was used for cold, there is a method that you can do a form of agalah, which involves putting it in water overnight for 24 hours, 3 days in a row. With a total of 72 hours, changing the water every single day. That is a type of agalah for glass. Most Sephardim are more lenient when it comes to glass because they claim glass is non-porous and it's smooth. So whether it was used for cold or hot, you can just wash it off, rinse it off, clean it well, of course, and then you can use it a whole year, even during Pesach. Yeah, but not Ashkenazim usually don't, unless it was used with cold food. If glass was used with cold food, there is a way to use it. But if it was used with hot, they stay away from it, whether it's Pyrex glass or any glass. If the vessel was never immersed in the mikveh, then of course it requires mikveh. If it's a new vessel, then of course you want to take it to the mikveh if it's glass or metal. But if you've used it and you were thinking, can I make hagalah to it or not? If it's metal and it was used on top of the burner, on the top of the stove with water, with liquid, then it qualifies for hagalah. What about an oven that has no water, right? An oven that's used directly with fire. If it's a self-cleaning oven, then you have it easy because you just run a cycle and that covers it. Before you begin the cycle, by the way, you clean it very well. You don't use it overnight. You put easy off, so that does a good job, and then you're fine. You can use it for Pesach. You don't have to do anything else. However, if you don't have a self-cleaning oven, you have a regular oven that goes to a maximum of 550 degrees, then the best solution is not to use it for 24 hours, to put it on the highest temperature for at least an hour. And this is all after you have cleaned it very well with Easy Off as well. Then you should be able to use it on Pesach. The broiler is not recommended. Broiler is a little bit more difficult to clean because ideally any area that becomes very, very hot requires a torch. And 550 does not qualify as a torch, 750 degrees. So we don't try not to use the broiler on Pesach. If you have to, there are ways that you can use it, but it's best not to. For 7 or 8 days, one can hold himself back. There's not that much that you're really sacrificing by not using the broiler. But the oven, can be cleaned, and you can rely on turning it on to the highest temperature. As long as it was not used for 24 hours and you cleaned it very well. The burners is a little easier, so you usually don't use the burner with food directly sitting on them. It's usually the pot that's sitting on them. So all you do is clean it very well and turn it on for about 15 minutes or so, upside down if you want, so the flame reaches all over. Now the top of the stove, the cover, that is usually enamel or something like that. That you cover with aluminum foil paper. Because food goes on top, sometimes you put hot food on top of that. That you don't, unless it was pure metal, you could pour boiling hot water on it. Otherwise you just cover it with with aluminum foil. Okay, which brings us to the next item. What do you do with the rest of the kitchen? The most difficult part in the kitchen besides the oven is the sink. If it's a stainless steel sink, then you pour hot boiling water, because that is the way it's used. Hot water is poured, right? So in the same way that it is used, that is how you make It's kasher for Pesach. That is how you do the irui or the hagala. In this case, it's not a real hagala. You pour in boiling hot water to clean the surface of the kior. If it's stainless steel, that is the way to do it. Some add a little bit of Ajax too. You don't need to do that. Hot boiling water is sufficient. The problem is when you have a ceramic. I guess it's called ceramic, no? Porcelain, right? Porcelain sink. Those are more difficult to clean. Those can be problematic according to some opinions. So many of the stricter opinions say that they cannot be cleaned very well. So you clean them as best as you can, and then you cover it, you line it with contact paper, or the easiest way is just to buy yourself some plastic inserts that you put inside. That is where you place your dishes. Some say you can even pour boiling water with Ajax. If you use Ajax and pour boiling water all around, you can use it. But we avoid that. Pesach, we're extra careful. Our mothers and grandmothers were so careful they even cleaned the walls. They worked very, very hard not to have any hashash, any doubt of Hametz and Pesach. So I will show you soon, in a moment, there are various kulot, various leniencies that you can use. Hametz, as much as possible, it's a segula שהוא ינצל מהחטא במשך כל השנה. הקדוש ברוך הוא will watch over him that he will be spared from any sin throughout the whole year. He was careful to midah k'neged midah. With Hametz, as much as possible, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will watch over him. So there are leniencies, and I will share with you some of them, but I'm letting you know why there are chumrot as well. Hametz is special, and we were extra careful even though there are leniencies. So when it comes to the tables or the countertops, many of the countertops and the tables can be cleaned. It's from wood or metal. You can pour boiling hot water. The tables need to be opened up where you have the dividers. There's always crumbs of bread falling in the middle. So whether it's your dining room table for Shabbat, whether it's your dinette table, it should be cleaned thoroughly, very well. You should check your seats, depending on what kind of chairs you use. There might be some crumbs around the rims, around the borders. Use a vacuum cleaner, use a knife, whatever you do to clean the table and the chairs well. Pour hot boiling water on the table. And if you don't want to do that, then you need to cover the table. You don't want the food on Pesach coming in contact with that same table that you've placed on throughout the year, Hametz, especially hot Hametz sometimes. So tables and countertops for that reason are usually covered. If you do not want to cover it, then you have to pour boiling hot water and clean it very, very well. That includes formica. And of course, if it's ceramic or anything else, some would cover it with something, because boiling hot water may not be sufficient. But that would be the minimum, boiling hot water and cleaning it thoroughly, if you don't want to cover it. Covering is easy. You don't have to worry about anything. Okay, cleaning your teeth is important. Those who have dentures are a little bit difficult to clean. One way to do it is to soak them in water overnight, 24 hours. You put them in hot boiling water. They need to be cleaned thoroughly. Teeth have to be brushed well right before 9:30. So after your breakfast, you wash your teeth, you brush your teeth, you rinse your mouth well. There's no chametz left over in your mouth. Yeah. It doesn't have to be as thoroughly. We clean it well because we like to have a clean home. No, it would not be a requirement. Yeah, because you're not using it. It's really, some do both, but in reality, it's either or. The only issue is that sometimes the hot boiling water may not be applicable because of the material that is used. The covering would be in some ways better. So traditionally, you will see either one or the two or both. Hot boiling water being poured over the kitchen everywhere is seen in many, many Jewish homes, especially in those areas where there is chametz, at the table or a countertop. And that takes care of any chametz that may have been absorbed there through heat. And those who cover it is because just to be on the safe side, if that was not sufficient. But that is at least the minimum, the hot boiling water. Okay, for the males who are firstborn, whether it's a firstborn to the father or mother, whether it's a kohen or levi, the day before Pesach, they need to remember it's a fast day. Unless they participate in Seudat Mitzvah or Pidyon Ben, a Brit Milah, a Siyum Masechet. That is something that's very common these days, to have somebody finish a Masechet Gemara, to have a Seudat Mitzvah. That is how the Bechor becomes exempt from the fast. So that is something that, of course, we need to remind anybody who is over the age of Bar Mitzvah, but if the child is under Bar Mitzvah, then the father should participate in the Siyum or should fast himself. It applies to any Bechor, whether he's a Bechor Kohen, Levi, or Israel, or whether it's a Bechor to the father or to the mother. Everybody. When it comes to this fast, when we say Bechor, we mean any type of Bechor. Sure, at a Pesach you don't want to fast. So you try to partake in to participate in a Seudat Mitzvah. Of course, yeah. No, even if that would not qualify, and even someone that is not, a child that did not come out from the womb, he was a cesarean birth, would also not be called a Bechor. Right, no, it's not the firstborn. Right, it depends, of course, at what stage it was. It was early on, the first few weeks, it's nothing. After 40. It would have to have developed into something, in order to qualify as a miscarriage or the first child. Okay, real quickly, food for Pesach. A whole year round, we are careful with what we put into our mouth. We check for the Ashgacha, for the supervision, whether it's an OU or an OK or something else that is reliable. Pesach, we have something else to consider, whether it's Kasher LePesach. So we don't take any chances. We look out for the OUP or for the OKP, for that extra P. Now, granted that there might be items that do not have an Ashgacha that might be Kasher LePesach, especially if you buy it before Pesach. Take, for example, mazola oil. For those who do not have a problem with kitniyot, and I'll get to kitniyot in a moment. There might be some issue with the machinery, with the equipment, with anything that may have gotten mixed up in this oil. There's a safek, doubt. But because it's before Pesach, we spoke about bitul. It's cancelled, it's annulled. You don't have to be concerned with it. So some are lenient and say you can buy it before Pesach. You don't have to buy kosher for Passover oil based on that. Because there's no real chametz that you can think of, but it wasn't supervised for Passover. Ashkenazim and some rabbis are the opinion that because for Pesach we're much more serious, we're much more strict, actually, is the word, right? Then you need to have supervision over the product. And if you don't have supervision, you don't eat it. Not only that, if you opened up something before Pesach, even if it's kasher Pesach, but because you opened it up before Pesach, you don't use it on Pesach. You don't have to sell it, you put it away. A jar of mayonnaise or whatever it is. You opened it before Pesach, you may have put in a spoon or something with chametz inside, right? It's possible. So you don't use it anymore for Pesach. Wine is the same thing. You open it before Pesach, don't use it for Pesach. But these items that do not have Ashgacha, even though they don't have chametz, they don't have any ingredients that appear to be chametz, it's best to avoid them. Unless there's nothing else, and any alternative is extremely expensive, for example, then okay. Then the halakha says that you can buy it, and you don't have to be concerned. Because if there was anything, and you bought it before Pesach, remember, not on Pesach, but before, then it was batel before Pesach, right? So that is why there are certain products, in some opinions, who are lenient. But it's always best for 7-8 days, just be a little strict, and to be on the safe side, and to buy those products that we know have been supervised for use for Pesach. With medicine and with vitamins, it becomes a little bit more tricky, depending on if the person really needs the medicine, if he's very sick. There may be some medication that is kasher LePesach, an alternative. If something is chametz, you should look into something which is not chametz. If there isn't anything, depending on what his condition is, of course, if it's a very serious condition, then there are more leniencies. But even if his condition is not so serious, if his medication is not edible, it's not a problem. Vitamins, on the other hand, and some medications that have flavoring, because of the flavoring, it does become somewhat edible. So you don't have that leniency anymore. So if you have a question about a particular medication, there are lists that are published every year. There are books that are published every year about various food items, medication and vitamins, of which ones contain chametz and which ones are kasher LePesach. So instead of going through all that list now, I think if you do have a question, you can call me or ask me later, and I'll look it up for you. That is sold. Yeah, I mentioned that the liquors and whiskeys that may have chametz, not only chametz, mixtures of chametz, should be sold. Right? You set aside a place that you're going to lock or tape up, and you do that a day or so before. You give yourself enough time to go see the person who will take care of it for you. Okay, another area that is important, and that happens usually the 14th, the day before Pesach, we're very busy in the kitchen. Not only cooking and preparing for Pesach, but checking the romaine lettuce. Romaine lettuce is unique because even though there are all sorts of lettuce that we eat, all types of lettuce that we eat throughout the year, romaine lettuce has a chazakah. It has a tendency to have Yitushim, to have certain types of bugs or aphids. And therefore, you cannot just put it into your mouth. You have to soak it in cold water, not in hot water, because you're going to ruin it if you put it in hot water. You can soak it for 10-15 minutes in cold water. You don't even have to soak it for that long. You just put it in a big bowl, take a bunch of leaves, cover it with water to the top, add some salt. And after a few minutes, you will see if there were any bugs, they will float to the top. Or after you've removed the water, you will see the bugs coming out. You will find a couple bugs, always, just about always, 2 or 3. Now, because some bugs are camouflaged, they are green, then you may not notice them. You still have to, after you've removed the water, you take every single leaf and you check it with sunlight, both sides, to see if there were any of these bugs left on the leaf. You'll be surprised, sometimes you will find. That's the purpose of rinsing them, washing off every leaf, and checking in sunlight to see if there was any bugs left. That's very important with the romaine lettuce. No, because we use romaine lettuce for maror. Others use other things, you're right. But if you're going to be using romaine lettuce, that has a tendency to have bugs and aphids, and that is one of the things, depending on the quantities that you will be checking, this may take you an hour or so. It's tedious, but it needs to be done properly. Yeah, no. If you use hot water, you're going to be ruining the leaf. It won't be maror anymore. It's cooked. It's not. Hot water is like cooking, and you can ruin the leaf. Alright, shi'ur matzah v'yain. There's a mitzvah to eat matzot, especially in the Leil HaSeder, to drink 4 cups of wine. One has to keep in mind that there's a certain shi'ur. When we talk about shi'ur, there's 2 types of shi'urim. The shi'ur, or amount that needs to be consumed, and the shi'ur, or time during which it will be eaten. You can't take your time forever to eat that matzah for 20 minutes. It has to be done within a couple minutes. That kazait, that matzah that you're going to be eating, it has to be done within a couple minutes. Some say 2, some say up to 9. It has to be done relatively quickly. You can't just take your time, right? And it has to be at least a kazait. Kazait, depending on if you're eating a round matzah or if you're eating a square matzah, the shiur is slightly different. The square matzah is about 2/3 of the matzah. Whether you're eating the afikoman or the korech, anytime you're eating a kazait, that is approximately the amount. It's about 2/3 of the square. If it's a round matzah, it's between 1/3 and 1/2 of the entire matzah. So it's a lot of matzah. Which brings us to the next item of matzah ashira. What happens if you cannot chew? It's very difficult for you to eat that kind of matzah. Well, there's something called egg matzah or matzah ashira. We are not yotzei yedei chovat mitzvah. You do not fulfill the mitzvah of eating matzah on Pesach by eating matzah ashira. That's number 1. But you are allowed to later on, if you want to, especially according to the Sephardim, to eat that kind of matzah on Pesach. Because according to some opinions, matzah ashira can be a big problem because of the way it's made with juices and with egg. If any water gets in contact with it, it becomes chametz immediately, or very, very quickly. So a lot of Ashkenazim avoid matzah ashira or egg matzah unless it's for their kids or older people that have a problem with chewing. They have no choice; they can eat that matzah. But just remember, for the seder night, one should eat regular matzah. There's something called matzah shemura, which is the preferred matzah to eat on the seder night. That's matzah that was watched or guarded, whether it was in the time of the harvesting, cutting down the wheat stalks, or whether it's from the grinding, or whether it's from the time that they began to prepare the dough for matzah. There's different levels of shemura. But matzah shemura means that this matzah was very well guarded, that there was no water in contact with the wheat at any stage until the point where they actually began preparing it for matzah. This is the preferred matzah for at least the Leil HaSeder. You will see it in the stores, matzah shemura. That is the highest quality matzah. Yeah, that's the best matzah. If you want to do the mitzvah as best as possible, you want to buy matzah shemura, at least for the Leil HaSeder, for the night of the seder. Right, both together. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's matzah shemura. Right. Okay, wine. You want to drink at least 3 ounces. There are different types of wines. There's yain mevushal, yain lo mevushal, cooked wine, non-cooked wine. For Pesach, it's best to use non-cooked wine. Wine that was not cooked has a problem with goyim touching it. It can become yain neser, and they can make your wine asur. That is one of the advantages of cooked wine. The problem with cooked wine is, according to some opinions, you cannot make what if you cannot use it for kiddush. So it depends. There are various opinions. We are more lenient. We do use yain mevushal for all our needs. And we also allow the use of grape juice for those that can't have regular wine. What I do, since I use a big cup of wine myself, I mix the two. Yeah, because the halakha is that you should drink at least the rov kos, the majority of the cup. You don't have to drink the entire thing. But if you have a small cup, you do want to finish it. The minimum should be, or the average is about 3 fluid ounces of wine or grape juice that you should drink for the Arba Kosot, which applies, by the way, to both men and women. Well, that doesn't take too long, but also, the same amount of time. You don't want to take your time drinking it. Right, each time. Yeah, each time that you have, but you should have at least 3 ounces. This year we have Eruv Tafshilin. Yom Tov, Shabbat comes out right after Yom Tov. There's no weekday between Yom Tov and Shabbat. And you're not allowed to cook from Yom Tov to Shabbat, or even from one day of Yom Tov to the next day. On Yom Tov, when we cook, we only cook for that day. In other words, if it's the night, you cook for the following day. But you cannot cook from one day of Yom Tov to the following day of Yom Tov. Now, this is all assuming that you're cooking according to the guidelines of Yom Tov cooking, which means you already have to have a fire turned on. Fire from fire, or a pilot light. You cannot turn on the flame on Yom Tov. The Torah permitted the sort of ochel nefesh to cook as long as the fire is there already, or a flame somewhere. So as long as you meet the requirements of cooking Yom Tov, which also includes not extinguishing the flame, the only time that you can lower the flame is in the letzorech habishul, for the cooking itself. You don't want to overcook it. But once you're done with it, you can't just shut off the flame. So as long as you're aware of these halachot, you're going to cook. You have an additional problem this year of not being able to cook from Yom Tov to Shabbat. So how are you going to cook for Shabbat? It's Friday. You need food for Shabbat. How are you going to cook? So you do what's called Eruv Tafshilin. You combine the food by setting aside a matzah and an egg, traditionally, making the beracha on the Eruv Tafshilin, that you are combining the food. You're beginning the process already of cooking, of preparing for Shabbat right now. You're combining that time frame, that food, that allows you, comes Friday afternoon, to prepare food for Shabbat as well. Because you've begun the process before Yom Tov. You've done this Eruv Tafshilin, Eruv meaning to combine, to mix the food that you will be preparing then with the food that you're preparing now. Yeah, that is 2 food items that you're preparing now. You cooked an egg. Yeah, sure. Yeah, exactly. This is done Wednesday. You should not forget. Prepare yourself a list. There's so many things going on. Eruv Tafshilin this year, Wednesday you'll be checking the chasa, you'll be doing the haroset, you'll be doing the maror, and the salt water. The reason why you're going to be doing this Wednesday is because even though in Yom Tov you can do certain things, anything that can be done Erev Yom Tov needs to be done Erev Yom Tov. If you forgot to do the salt water, you can do it, of course. If you forgot to do the haroset or maror, you can do it, but you have to do it with a shinui. It has to be done in not your ordinary, regular way. It has to be done in a different way. So these things traditionally are always done before Yom Tov, not too early, because then the maror loses its sharpness, its bitterness. So this is all done Wednesday. You see how Wednesday there's a lot of work. There's the burning of the chametz that you take care of. There's the cleaning of the hasa, checking it out, cooking. There's a lot of things that need to be done. So you made yourself a list. Right. See you? Yeah. Alright, Kitniyot, real quickly, there are some communities, especially Ashkenazim, that do not eat legumes. Legumes include hummus, sesame, beans, rice, peas, right, and the like. For a variety of reasons, you can make bread from these things. Something that would look just like a loaf of bread. Or the grains of these things can be mixed or can come in contact with that of wheat, barley, oat, rye, or spelt, any of the 5 grains. In other words, there may have been some chametz that came in contact with it. So as a result of that, some communities do not eat for 7-8 days these items, and it's no big deal. You can hold yourself back. But in Iran and other countries where they relied on rice, they did not, of course, adopt this custom, but they still check the rice 3 times. Morocco did accept it, even though they're Sephardic, they did accept that. They may eat other legumes, but not rice. So there's various customs in various communities. Some will eat only fresh legumes, but not dry. So that you follow your custom. Yes. For Ashkenazim. Yeah. Yes. Now, hummus, not everybody, no. Hummus, not everybody, no. Yeah, not everybody eats hummus on Pesach. Right. If it's there, then you can turn it on. It's a flame from a flame. No. You're not allowed to extinguish on Yom Tov. And extinguishing means lowering the flame too. That's called extinguishing. except for cooking. As you are adjusting the flame, if you're lowering it after you're satisfied with the cooking, that is okay. But once the cooking is done, you can't lower it or extinguish it. Yeah. Right. You have to leave it on the whole time. Right? Yeah. Okay. Real quickly. The Pesach, the Seder night, has quite a few halachot and minhagim. We don't have the time to go through each one of them. I just want to say a few words about the most important part of the Seder, and that is the Haggadah. There's a mitzvah in the Torah Lesafer B'Yitziat Mitzrayim to retell the story of what happened in Egypt during the night of the Seder. There is therefore an emphasis on chinuch yeladim, on educating our children. As the pasuk says, "V'yigata lebincha b'yom ha'u lemor," if you should tell your child what happened, retell the story, share with him the experiences that our forefathers had in Egypt. There's an emphasis in the Seder night of transmitting, giving over the Masorah, our tradition, to our children. That is where we make them stay up. We allow them to steal the Afikoman, to encourage them to stick around, to hear everything. So it's not just a time to eat and enjoy yourself, but it's a time to talk about what happened, to read and understand what is being read in the Haggadah, and to have them involved in at least a part of the Seder. The reason for that is because by retelling the story, or we're talking about the miracles, we are strengthening in them the emunah, the faith in Hashem. But specifically, we're strengthening an important concept. The concept that in the same way that Hashem has performed miracles for us in Egypt, He will continue to perform miracles to the Jewish people in the future. Very important point. Because the whole dor vador omdim aleinu lechalotenu, l'kadosh baruch hu matzilenu miyadam. Because in every generation, the goyim stand up against us. They persecute us. They attempt to destroy us in every generation. There's not one generation that you don't see this. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Rachamav HaGolim, in His compassion, does not allow their plots to succeed. And He saves us from their hand. This is a very important integral part of the Haggadah that we speak about during the Leil HaSeder, that we tell this to our children. The Manishtana, the Halach Ma'anya, all of these things have to do with the Chizuk HaEmunah, with the strengthening of faith, and with giving over to them, the future generations, the tradition that we received from our forefathers. Another important point that is expressed in the Haggadah is words of encouragement, that even though we have been scattered and spread out to the diaspora, the Jews are reading the Haggadah and saying it all over the world. Nevertheless, we are hopeful and we pray to Hashem that the coming year, all of us will be sitting in Yerushalayim Abniyah. So the reading of the Haggadah is a very, very instrumental piece of information to convey to our children emunah in Hashem, emunah in miracles, and in emunah that everything will repeat itself very soon, including their redemption, the same way we had it in Egypt. It's a very, very special time, and that is why we encourage them to sit with us and to talk about it. A lot of people share their personal stories of what happened to them during the Holocaust, how they were saved miraculously. It's a very special time. It's a very sensitive time, not just to drink and eat, but to talk about it. People minimize it, and you can't blame them. The first time people are usually tired from a very arduous, day before or days before cleaning the house. If you're tired, then at least spend your second day, your second night. We have that advantage here in Chutz La'aretz. In Israel, they only have one night. Here we have 2 nights to do it over. So therefore, you don't want to get it over quickly. You want to take your time. You want to go over the Haggadah, look through the commentaries and how they explain what each piece means and why it is said, and how meaningful it is. It's a great time. It's an exciting time for children. And remember, more important than anything else, the month in itself, the month of Nisan, is a very unique month, a very special month, because that is the month that is the most mesugal for Geulah. As the rabbis tell us, B'Nisan nigalu, u'B'Nisan atidin nigael. In Nisan, we had the first redemption, and B'ezrat Hashem very soon, in Nisan, we'll have the beginning, at least, of the coming redemption. Okay, I think we've covered a little bit of everything. Yeah.
How come we have some generations where it hasn't been too bad, like for example, all that time people keep on sourcing? Has there always been generations where the way that first period?
Every generation, yeah. There's been some quiet periods, like 10, 20, 30 years quiet, but that was only one place. Maybe some other place there was troubles. Yeah. No, they never had that kind of amount of time. No, during the reign of Shlomo Melech, that wasn't 400 years. Right, it was peace. There were periods of peace, as I said. 10, 20, 30, 40 years was maybe the maximum that you had peace. But in every generation, at some point, somewhere, especially in the diaspora, once the Jews were in the diaspora, they didn't have it easy. It wasn't quiet. What? Did you see the video? Or did you hear my lecture? Oh, okay. When you'll see the video, you'll understand why. Yeah. Whenever we have trouble, there's a reason for it. It's a reminder. Hashem is awakening us, reminding us that something is not right. Some things don't happen for no reason. There are many reasons of why anti-Semitism exists, but the main reason is not because they're jealous of us. The main reason is because Hashem brings them out against us. To remind you, He uses them as a whip. So there may be various factors of why anti-Semitism exists, but the main one, the most important, the most prevalent one, is because Hashem uses them as a whip. And if they come after us, then we have to ask ourselves, why? Why? Did we do something wrong? Because if we would be okay, if we would be behaving ourselves, we would be in peace with everybody. Nobody would bother us. Right? So when something is wrong, you examine yourself, what's going on, and you will find that there is something that you did not do right that needs correcting. And Hashem uses the enemy as a way to remind us to wake up and do something about it. Anyway, let's hope we don't get too many reminders and we wake up on our own. That would be the best.